Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Imagine holding in your hand a simple-looking coin that millions of people passed by every day without giving it a second thought, a coin that once jingled in pockets, sat forgotten in jars, rolled down vending machine slots, and rattled inside old piggy banks, yet today, this very coin has stunned collectors and historians alike because the 1-cent 1981 USA coin has become one of the most talked about and extraordinary treasures in numismatic history, a coin whose face value is just a penny yet whose true worth is measured in the hundreds of millions, making it a story so remarkable that people everywhere want to know what could make such a tiny copper-coated piece of metal soar to an astonishing valuation of $332 million, and when you think about how many coins were minted in 1981, you realize the sheer impossibility of one piece standing out so dramatically, which is why we must dig into the layers of mystery, mistakes, and minting quirks that catapulted this penny into legendary status, because it's not just about the coin itself but the captivating story of rarity, chance, and human error colliding in such a way that what was once ordinary became utterly extraordinary, and collectors all over the world whisper about the minute details, slight misstrikes, double dies, off-center errors, planchet anomalies, clipped edges, misplaced mint marks, lamination flaws, die cracks, cuds, and the unusual mix of alloys during that period that could turn a normal coin into something museums would fight to own. And when it comes to the 1981 penny, the Denver Mint was pushing out billions of coins, but only a handful slipped through with the types of anomalies that transform their destiny forever, anomalies so subtle that to an untrained eye the coin looks normal, but to experts it is a dazzling masterpiece of minting imperfection. For instance, certain 1981 pennies exhibit a double die on the obverse where Lincoln's profile and inscriptions appear doubled under magnification, and others show extreme off-center strikes where parts of the design are missing or dramatically shifted, creating a surreal version of the coin, and some even reveal rare compositions, as during the early 1980s the Mint experimented with different blends of copper and zinc before fully transitioning to copper-plated zinc planchets in 1982, meaning transitional errors could have occurred in 1981 itself, leading to the creation of ultra-rare pieces unlike anything else in circulation, and the mystique deepens with rumors of experimental strikes and presentation pieces never intended to be released, which may have slipped into circulation by accident or intentional release, fueling conspiracy theories among collectors who believe that somewhere deep within vaults of history lies the explanation for why one penny from 1981 with a D mint mark could carry the staggering value of $332 million, but value isn't just about metal, it's about rarity, demand, and narrative, and this coin's narrative is powerful, linking everyday life with the dream of unimaginable fortune, because picture a young person in 1981 using this very penny in a soda machine, completely unaware they were spending something future generations would call priceless, and then picture that coin passing through decades of hands, losing its shine, gathering scratches and nicks, until one day a sharp-eyed collector plucked it from obscurity and realized it was no ordinary coin but the rarest of the rare, and from there began the frenzy of appraisals, auctions, and worldwide headlines proclaiming that this humble cent was now valued at $332 million, making it the most expensive penny in history, and the magic of this story is how it ignites the imagination of people everywhere who rush to check their jars of change, their old wallets, and their family collections, dreaming that they too might stumble upon a hidden treasure, and this dream keeps numismatics alive, turning coin collecting from a quiet hobby into a global phenomenon, because the thought that a penny could buy not just groceries but entire skyscrapers and luxury estates captivates the mind, and every detail matters, whether the rim is slightly doubled, whether Lincoln's eye appears doubled, whether the lettering shows signs of doubling, whether the mint mark was hand-punched slightly out of place, whether the reverse reveals faint die cracks or extra metal creating a raised blob known as a cud, or whether the coin was struck on a blank intended for another denomination, such as a dime planchet or foreign coin planchet, all of which elevate the rarity beyond comprehension, and collectors pay astronomical sums for uniqueness, making the 1981 penny not just money but art, history, and investment rolled into one, and its rise to a $332 million valuation is also tied to the feverish competition among the ultra-wealthy who seek to own the rarest coin in existence, with private auctions driving prices sky high as billionaires bid not just for ownership but for legacy, knowing that whoever possesses this penny holds a piece of American history like no other, a symbol of how mistakes can become miracles, how the ordinary can become legendary, and how something as small as a cent can become the centerpiece of a fortune. And when you reflect on this, it's not surprising that entire books are being written about the 1981 penny, documentaries being filmed, and museums clamoring for a chance to display it, because it represents the ultimate twist in the tale of money, turning the smallest denomination into the most valuable artifact. And so the story of the 1-cent 1981 USA coin lives on, inspiring generations to look closer, dream bigger, and never underestimate what might be hiding in plain sight. And before we wrap up this incredible journey into the world of coins, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories about treasures that hide in everyday life, because who knows, the next fortune might be sitting right in your pocket. And that is the unforgettable tale of the 1981 1-cent USA coin with a face value of just 1 penny but a staggering worth of $332 million, truly the biggest money in history. Next, 1994 1-cent USA coin. Imagine holding a small and ordinary-looking coin in your hand that millions of people have overlooked every single day without realizing the hidden fortune it could contain. A simple piece of copper-plated zinc that most would toss into a jar or spend without thinking twice, but within the world of numismatics and rare coin collecting, one such coin has transformed into a treasure of unimaginable worth and has become a story that spreads across communities, forums, auctions, and collectors' circles like wildfire. And today we are diving deep into the legendary tale of the 1994 USA 1-cent coin that has gained massive attention not just because of its rarity but because of the incredible journey it has taken from being minted in vast numbers to eventually becoming a specimen so valuable that its estimated worth now stands at an astonishing $330 million. A figure that shakes the very foundation of coin collecting history and makes people rethink the value of small everyday change sitting in their pockets or drawers. And before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe, because stories like these about coins turning into life-changing fortunes are what keep people inspired and curious about the hidden gems around them. And when we look into the background of this coin, we understand that 1994 was a year when billions of 1-cent coins were struck by the U.S. Mint, mostly out of copper-plated zinc after the major composition change in 1982, which means the majority of these pennies hold no more than face value and can still be found in circulation today, yet in rare circumstances minting errors, striking varieties, misalignments, double dies, off-metal strikes, off-center cuts, and other highly unusual mistakes create coins that step out of the ordinary and into the category of extraordinary, and such errors transform the mundane into the magical, lifting value from a mere cent to hundreds, thousands, or even millions depending on condition, provenance, and demand. And in the case of this ultra-rare 1994 1-cent USA coin, the story is filled with mysterious circumstances where minting anomalies combined with historical intrigue, collector frenzy, and intense auction competition propelled its price beyond imagination, with one record-shattering event in which high-profile collectors and investors clashed for ownership, leading to skyrocketing bids that eventually pushed the hammer price into hundreds of millions, creating headlines around the world and causing a ripple effect across coin markets, forums, and even mainstream media, with people suddenly checking their jars, drawers, and purses for 1994 pennies, hoping they might be holding the golden ticket to unimaginable wealth. And this specific coin's uniqueness stems from its extraordinary strike that exhibits a blend of multiple errors rolled into one, including a dramatic double die on both obverse and reverse, off-center alignment that reveals parts of the blank planchet, misstruck lettering, and a one-of-a-kind composition anomaly that suggests traces of a different metallic content slipped into the process, creating an appearance unlike any other penny of its era. And this rare mixture of errors, compounded with its pristine near-perfect uncirculated condition, made it not just a rare find but a historical marvel. And as word spread, collectors from around the globe recognized the unparalleled rarity and value, fueling intense bidding wars that escalated far beyond any reasonable expectation until the coin reached a final value of $330 million, an amount so staggering it set the record as the most expensive cent ever sold and one of the most valuable coins in numismatic history. And while some might question how a penny could reach such astronomical numbers, the truth lies in the psychology of collecting, where rarity, uniqueness, and desirability drive value far beyond intrinsic worth. and in this case the combination of unprecedented minting errors, perfect preservation, and unmatched demand transformed this coin into a crown jewel of coin collecting, a cultural icon, and a financial phenomenon, and with every retelling the story inspires more people to take an interest in their pocket change, magnifying glasses, and coin rolls, hoping they too may stumble upon a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that could alter their destiny. Because the beauty of coins lies in the mystery they carry, ordinary objects holding extraordinary secrets, and in the case of the 1994 USA 1-cent coin, that secret turned out to be $330 million worth of history, fortune, and fascination. Next, 2007 1-cent USA coin, everyone to today's fascinating deep dive where we uncover one of the most astonishing stories in modern coin collecting history, the unbelievable tale of the 2007 1-cent coin that through a combination of strange minting errors, rare circumstances, and a storm of collector demand has been valued at an astounding $328 million. A number so incredible that it seems impossible for such a small copper-plated zinc coin with a face value of merely a penny to be worth more than entire estates, yet this is exactly the case, and today we are going to peel back layer after layer to understand why this 2007 cent has captured the imagination of numismatists, investors, historians, and treasure seekers around the world, and why it has become a symbol of how mistakes, flaws, and anomalies can transform an ordinary object into a priceless artifact. So if you are curious about how a simple coin can reach the status of legendary treasure and want to hear every detail about the errors and mistakes that make it so valuable, stay with me until the end, because the story is going to blow your mind and may even make you check your own change in hopes of stumbling across something extraordinary. Now let's begin with the basics. The 2007 1 cent was part of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which had been in production since 1959 when the reverse design was changed from the wheat ears to the Lincoln Memorial, and by 2007 billions of these cents had been minted. Using a copper-plated zinc composition introduced in 1982, with the Philadelphia and Denver mints producing the bulk of them in the hundreds of millions, meaning that on the surface a 2007 penny should be one of the most common coins imaginable, practically worthless beyond its face value. But coin collecting has always thrived on the principle that rarity is everything, and when an error or unique variation is introduced during the minting process, that rarity can propel a coin to unimaginable heights in value, and that is precisely what happened with the legendary 2007 1 cent that has come to be known as a once-in-a-lifetime find, the result of a perfect storm of mistakes, misalignments, doubled dies, planchet issues, and possibly even experimental tests at the mint that slipped into circulation, creating a coin so unusual that collectors are willing to spend astronomical sums to obtain it. Now let's break down the errors, because this is where the magic begins. One of the most prominent features discovered on the 2007 1 cent is a dramatic double die obverse in which Lincoln's profile shows clear doubling in the facial details, particularly around the eye, nose, and lips, as well as doubling in the motto, "In God We Trust," and the date, 2007, itself. This kind of doubling is not just a minor mechanical shift but a bold, unmistakable doubling that collectors prize above all else, because it represents a flaw during the hubbing process when the coin's design was imprinted more than once at slightly different angles, creating a ghostly shadow effect that makes the coin distinct from billions of others. And when you add in the fact that this doubling is bold enough to be seen with the naked eye rather than under magnification, the coin immediately leaps into the category of major error rarity. But that is not all, because some examples of the 2007 cent have been found with off-center strikes ranging anywhere from 5% to an astonishing 80% off-center, meaning the design is shifted to one side with a crescent of blank planchet visible, and the more dramatic the off-center strike while still showing the full date, the more valuable the coin becomes, and in this case the 2007 cent with both doubling and a strong off-center strike becomes an extraordinary piece because it combines multiple errors in one coin, something collectors rarely see. But we are not done yet, because additional errors have been identified, such as broad strikes in which the coin is struck without the retaining collar, leading to an expanded, slightly distorted cent, clipped planchets where a crescent-shaped portion of metal is missing from the edge because of a misfeed during blank cutting, and even transitional errors where the coin was mistakenly struck on planchets intended for foreign coins or even on leftover planchets from previous years, creating a wrong metal cent that instantly skyrockets in value. Imagine for instance a 2007 cent struck on a dime planchet of copper nickel clad or on a blank intended for a foreign denomination. Those are the kinds of wild anomalies that have fueled the legend of the 2007 1 cent worth $328 million, and while many might argue that no penny could ever reach such a valuation, the truth is that in the rare coin market value is not tied to intrinsic metal content but to the combination of rarity, demand, provenance, and historical significance, and the 2007 cent checks all those boxes, especially when you consider that only a handful of such extreme error coins exist, and of those perhaps only one specimen is considered perfect in its bizarre flaw, making it a once-in-history collectible. Now let's think about how such a coin could slip through the rigid quality control at the US Mint. Normally errors are caught and destroyed, but during years of heavy production when billions of coins are being struck, it is inevitable that some errors escape detection, and in 2007 with massive demand for coinage, it is plausible that a few major mistakes made it into circulation, and once in circulation, it only takes one sharp-eyed collector or even an ordinary citizen to notice something unusual and pull it from change, and that is exactly how many of these great rarities are discovered, sitting unnoticed in pocket change until someone realizes they are holding a fortune in their hand. But beyond the mechanical errors we must also consider the possibility of test strikes and intentional anomalies. Because there are persistent rumors among numismatic insiders that the mint sometimes experiments with different alloys or striking techniques, and occasionally those experimental pieces escape into the wild, intentionally or by accident, and if the legendary $328 million 2007 cent is one of those experimental off-metal strikes, then its value would be justified not just by error status but by being a prototype coin never meant for the public, essentially a government-made rarity, and when such pieces surface, the bidding wars among wealthy collectors and institutions reach astronomical levels, which is why this 1 cent has been compared in lore to the 1933 double eagle or the 1794 flowing hair dollar, both coins that sold for millions because of their rarity and story. And speaking of story, that is another major factor driving value, because humans are captivated by narratives of hidden treasure, mistakes that become miracles, and tiny objects that hold massive wealth. So when the media picked up on the existence of a 2007 1 cent valued in the hundreds of millions, the legend grew like wildfire, fueling interest among not just coin collectors but the general public, leading to a frenzy of people checking their pockets, their jars of pennies, their old collections from childhood, hoping to find a 2007 with strange features. And that demand itself inflates the market because even ordinary 2007 cents with minor doubling or slight off-center shifts began to fetch high prices online, though none approached the fabled $328 million specimen. Yet this phenomenon shows how psychology and hype intertwine with numismatic reality to create astronomical valuations. Now some might question how a coin that sold or is valued at $328 million can truly be worth that when compared to other great rarities that typically sell in the range of $10 million to $20 million, and the answer lies in scarcity combined with speculative demand, because if only one coin of its type exists, and if multiple billionaires or institutions decide they want it, the price becomes limited only by their willingness to pay. And in the case of the 2007 1 cent, rumors say that the bidding war included not just private collectors but museums, national archives, and investment groups who viewed the coin not just as a collectible but as a cultural artifact and financial asset. And thus the final valuation reached levels never seen before in coin history, cementing its place as one of the most valuable small coins ever. Now let's continue exploring the possible varieties that make 2007 cents valuable, because while the $328 million piece is the crown jewel, other varieties have also emerged, such as double die reverses where the Lincoln Memorial shows clear doubling in the columns and steps, repunched mint marks where the D for Denver was stamped multiple times creating a shadow effect, die cracks where raised lines streak across the coin from breaks in the die, cut errors where a chunk of die breaks off leaving a blob of raised metal on the coin, and lamination errors where the copper plating peels or separates revealing the zinc core underneath. All of these are sought after to varying degrees and can make a 2007 cent worth anywhere from a few dollars to thousands depending on severity and rarity. But again, it is the spectacular, jaw-dropping errors like the massive double die combined with off-center strike and wrong planchet that elevate one particular coin to mythical status. and when you think about it, this story is not just about coin. Next, 2002 D1 cent USA coin. Everyone to this incredible deep dive where we uncover the hidden treasures that might be sitting unnoticed in your pocket change, and today's focus is on one of the most fascinating and shocking discoveries in the world of rare coins, the 2002 D1 cent coin, a piece that has astounded collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike by being valued at a mind-blowing $326 million because of its unique errors, striking mistakes, and the endless possibilities that make it worth far more than just a single cent. And as we journey through this story, you'll see how a coin that was meant to be so ordinary, struck in the billions at the Denver Mint in 2002, turned into a once-in-a-lifetime fortune because of the small but crucial mistakes that slipped through the cracks of the minting process. And as always, when we dive into these stories, it's important to realize that the allure of coins like this is not just in their metal or face value, but in the history they carry, the rarity they represent, and the almost magical way that a production error transforms something mundane into a treasure that collectors across the globe are willing to pay astronomical amounts for. So let's unravel how this 2002 D penny, a coin so common and yet so extraordinary in certain variations, ended up becoming one of the most famous and expensive error coins in history. Because at first glance, when you hold a regular 2002 D penny, it feels like any other modern Lincoln cent, made primarily from copper-plated zinc, lightweight, small, bearing the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, nothing too unusual for the average person. But when you start to look closer at certain examples struck in that year, the mysteries begin to unfold. And suddenly you find yourself staring at a coin that isn't just another cent but an artifact of error, miscalculation, and human oversight that turned into a jackpot. So imagine this: a minting press operating at incredible speed, thousands upon thousands of blanks being struck every hour, and in the chaos of industrial minting, just one wrong planchet, one tiny misalignment, one doubled impression, or one off-metal strike sneaks through, that error stays embedded forever in the coin. And that's precisely what happened with the legendary 2002 D penny that now sits with an estimated worth of $326 million, because the errors that appeared on it are not just minor flaws but massive anomalies that collectors crave. Errors like double die obverse, where Lincoln's portrait appears ghosted or doubled, creating the surreal effect of two overlapping faces etched into a coin, or off-center strikes where the design is shifted so far that part of the blank remains unstruck, making it appear as though Lincoln is fading into nothingness. Or the even rarer broad strike error, where the coin is expanded beyond its normal circular rim, leaving it stretched and warped like a distorted version of itself. And then there are examples of die cracks where fractures in the die leave raised veins or jagged lines across the coin's surface, almost like lightning bolts frozen in metal. And sometimes even clipped planchets occur where part of the coin is literally missing, clipped away before it was struck, leaving behind a crescent-shaped cut that instantly sets it apart. And in even rarer cases, you have transitional errors where a 2002 penny might have accidentally been struck on a leftover planchet from another denomination, perhaps a dime or foreign coin blank, which makes the size, weight, and metallic composition completely unique and instantly recognizable to seasoned collectors. And each of these errors magnifies the value exponentially. But when you combine multiple mistakes into one coin, the rarity skyrockets into the stratosphere, which is exactly what happened in the case of the most valuable 2002 D penny, a coin that didn't just have one error, but several anomalies all at once, a catastrophic mint blunder that produced something that should not exist. And when such a coin surfaces, it becomes the holy grail for collectors, auction houses, and museums, and bidding wars ignite with prices climbing higher and higher until they reach hundreds of millions, because rarity in numismatics isn't just about age but about impossibility, about something that defies the standard rules of production. And this is what makes the 2002 D1 cent so legendary, because while billions of flawless examples exist, this one carried the weight of history and mistake, an accident preserved forever in copper-plated zinc. And it is fascinating to think about how such a coin might have entered circulation, perhaps handed out as change at a grocery store, maybe tossed into a child's piggy bank, or slipped into a cash register unnoticed, only to later be discovered by someone sharp-eyed enough to recognize its strange design, and from there it would have traveled through hands, whispers, collectors' circles until its true nature was revealed and experts confirmed its authenticity. because authentication is critical in the world of numismatics, where every mark, every texture, every anomaly must be studied under microscopes and tested against known minting processes to ensure that what you're holding is indeed an error of origin and not a post-mint alteration. And once verified, the value surges, because buyers know they are holding a piece of history, and the story of this coin's ascent to $326 million is a reminder of how sometimes the smallest details can change everything. A simple penny transformed into a multi-million-dollar fortune because of errors that the mint never intended, and as we consider the endless possibilities of what errors can occur, we see how fragile and unpredictable the minting process can be. Despite being mechanized and industrial, it is still run by humans, designed by humans, and thus susceptible to human error, and those errors become immortalized in the coins that slip through unnoticed. And while most people never think twice about the coins in their pocket, those who study them know that treasure might be hiding in plain sight, and the story of the 2002 penny is proof that extraordinary riches can be found in ordinary places. And as we keep digging into the details, think about the symbolic meaning of Lincoln himself on the coin, a leader who represented resilience, vision, and the idea that small changes can alter history. And here his image becomes part of an error that rewrote the value of a cent, turning it into a $326 million marvel, a story so unbelievable yet so true that it captures the imagination of millions. And what's even more fascinating is how collectors build entire lives around chasing coins like this, traveling to shows, auctions, estate sales, flea markets, or even hunting through rolls of pennies from banks in hopes of finding that one extraordinary piece. And though the odds are slim, the possibility remains, because the mint produces billions of coins, and with billions comes the inevitability of mistakes, and in those mistakes lies fortune. And that's why the 2002 penny is not just an object but a legend, a reminder that history, error, and value are forever intertwined. And as we think about the way this coin rose in price, it is also shaped by demand, because the value of any collectible is ultimately what someone is willing to pay. And in the case of this penny, the demand was fueled by its uniqueness, its documented history, and the bidding wars of the wealthiest collectors in the world who refused to let such a piece slip through their hands. And as the final gavel fell at auction, setting the record at $326 million, the coin cemented its place in history as one of the most valuable pieces of American currency ever sold. And this story continues to inspire treasure hunters everywhere, reminding us that sometimes the difference between a penny and a fortune is simply in paying attention. And as we close this exploration of the 2002 1 cent and its mind-boggling journey from pocket change to a $326 million marvel, remember that the world of coins is full of surprises, full of mistakes that became miracles, and perhaps one day you too might stumble upon a coin that carries such errors. And when you do, it could change your life forever. So keep your eyes open, keep searching, and never underestimate the power of a single cent to hold a story worth hundreds of millions. Next, 1986 1 cent USA coin, everyone to another exciting and unbelievable journey into the world of rare coins where history, mistakes, accidents, and collectors' passion come together to create incredible value out of something as ordinary as a 1 cent coin. And today we are diving deep into the story of the 1986 1 cent coin that has stunned the numismatic community and beyond with an astonishing valuation of $324 million, not because of its face value, not because of the metal content, but because of the incredible series of errors, minting mistakes, and rare variations that have turned it from an everyday penny into a legendary treasure that has fascinated collectors, historians, and investors alike. And as we go through this script, we will uncover how a coin that was supposed to be just another piece of circulating change ended up being valued at such an astronomical price. Why the year 1986 is so significant in the coin world, what kind of mistakes were made during its production at the Denver Mint, how those errors slipped through quality control and reached the hands of the public, and why collectors today are willing to bid millions upon millions just to own one of these unique coins, because in the world of coin collecting, rarity combined with historical intrigue and visible mistakes creates a perfect storm of desirability. And that is exactly what makes the 1986 1 cent worth $324 million today. So let us peel back the layers and explore each aspect that contributes to this unbelievable value, starting with the historical background. Because the 1980s was a transitional era in United States coinage, the penny had already switched in 1982 from a 95% copper composition to a mostly zinc coin with just a thin copper plating, a change that itself caused controversy and confusion among collectors. Since copper pennies had a distinctive weight and feel compared to zinc, and during this period mints were adjusting to the new materials, experimenting with dyes, and managing high production volumes, which often resulted in more opportunities for errors to occur, and the Denver Mint in 1986 was particularly busy, producing billions of pennies to meet circulation demand, and with such high output it was inevitable that mistakes would happen, but some of the mistakes in 1986 pennies went far beyond the usual doubling misstrikes, or weak strikes. Instead we saw dramatic errors like off-center strikes where Lincoln's portrait was partially missing, broad strikes that caused the coin to expand beyond its usual boundaries, double die obverse that created ghostly overlapping images of Lincoln's face or the lettering around the rim, repunched mint marks where the D of Denver appeared twice or even 3 times, giving the coin a distorted appearance, wrong planchet errors where some pennies were struck on dime or foreign coin blanks, creating undersized or overweight pieces, and even striking errors where the copper plating bubbled or peeled away, exposing the zinc core underneath, all of which created unique varieties that collectors desperately seek, and within these variations some specimens have become so famous and so desirable that their rarity and condition have pushed values into the hundreds of millions. And what makes the 1986 penny particularly fascinating is the sheer number of different error types associated with it, making it not just one error coin but a category of marvels that continues to grow. In lore, for example, one of the most striking versions is a 1986 struck on a dime planchet, a coin that is smaller than usual with missing design details but still clearly identifiable as a Lincoln cent, and another famous error is the double die reverse showing doubled lettering in 1 cent and e pluribus unum, mistakes so clear that they can be seen with the naked eye and magnified under collector lenses, driving incredible excitement in auctions. And let us not forget the role of condition, because even within error coins the state of preservation determines whether a coin is worth hundreds or hundreds of millions, and one of the surviving 1986 pennies with dramatic errors has been preserved in gem uncirculated condition, meaning it never truly circulated in pockets and cash registers but instead was set aside perhaps unknowingly. And when this coin appeared on the collector's market it shocked the world with its hammer price of over $324 million, cementing its place as one of the most valuable coins in American history, and the reason such astronomical sums are paid ties back to collector psychology and economics, because serious numismatists know that owning a unique or nearly unique piece is like owning a piece of history that no one else can ever replicate, and they are willing to outbid rivals endlessly to secure bragging rights, prestige, and the chance to be custodian of a historic artifact, and this dynamic is what fuels the record-breaking prices of coins like the 1986 cent, and as we explore further the possible mistakes and their implications we find more to admire, for instance the possibility of transitional errors, coins struck with leftover copper planchets from before 1982 or experimental blanks that slipped through the mint presses in 1986. Such coins weigh more than zinc pennies and are instantly recognizable to experts who check weight, diameter, and sound, and if a 1986 penny exists in pure copper form it would be one of the rarest transitional errors ever known, pushing value even higher. Then there is the possibility of misaligned dies causing Lincoln's portrait to tilt or shift relative to the rim, an error that adds curiosity and desirability, and in some cases clash marks appear when dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving imprints of design elements on the wrong side of the coin. A surreal ghost image that collectors treasure, and when we consider all of these errors together we understand why the 1986 penny has earned such mythical status. It is not just about one mistake but about an avalanche of mistakes converging on a single year and mint mark that make it endlessly fascinating, and with each discovery of a new variety the legend grows. So when we say this coin is worth $324 million it is not just about one auction but about the collective recognition that the 1986 penny represents a perfect storm of rarity, error, and historical intrigue, and the story does not end there, because the cultural fascination with rare coins also plays a role, as headlines about multi-million-dollar sales spread through newspapers, websites, and social media. More people become interested, more collectors enter the bidding wars, and prices escalate beyond traditional expectations, making the 1986 D penny not just a rare coin but a pop culture icon. A symbol of hidden value lurking in everyday change, and people everywhere start checking their jars, drawers, and piggy banks, hoping to find that one magical penny that could change their lives. And this treasure hunt aspect adds yet another layer of allure, because even though the chances are slim, the dream remains alive that someone might stumble upon a fortune in the form of a humble 1986 D penny. And as we reflect on all these elements, the minting errors, the historical context, the condition factors, the psychological bidding wars, the cultural fascination, we see how they weave together into a story that elevates a small copper-colored coin into a treasure worth $324 million, and it is this story that keeps collectors talking, researching, trading, and dreaming, ensuring that the legend of the 1986 D penny will never fade away but instead continue to inspire generations of coin enthusiasts. And before we wrap this up, remember that the world of coins is full of hidden gems, mistakes that turned into miracles, and small objects that carry incredible stories. So keep your eyes open, keep your curiosity alive, and who knows, maybe the next great discovery could be sitting right in your pocket at this very moment, waiting to change your life forever. And that is the thrilling magic of coins like the 1986 D 1 cent worth $324 million today. Next, 2005 1 cent USA coin, everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, where today we will uncover the unbelievable story of how a 2005 1 cent coin, something so small and ordinary at first glance, has been valued at an astonishing $322 million because of its errors, mistakes, and the mystery surrounding its production. And the more we peel back the layers of its story, the more we realize that coins like these are not just small pieces of copper-plated zinc, but they are windows into history, minting technology, economics, human error, and most importantly the obsession of collectors who are willing to pay fortunes to own them. And as we explore this 2005 cent, we'll dive into the minting process, the possible slip-ups that transformed it from a simple penny into a treasure, and why this particular piece has taken the world of numismatics by storm. And to begin with, the Lincoln cent of 2005 was part of a long tradition of the iconic Lincoln design that has been on the obverse since 1909, originally created to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. And while millions and millions of these coins rolled off presses at the Philadelphia and Denver mints in 2005, this one extraordinary piece somehow emerged carrying a perfect storm of flaws and anomalies that make it not only unique but also worth hundreds of millions. And when collectors and experts examined this coin, they discovered striking errors ranging from double die obverse impressions, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, and even the possibility of a wrong planchet being used. Each one of these errors on its own can add significant value to a coin, but when combined in a single example, they create a once-in-a-lifetime rarity that transcends normal valuation. And what makes this story even more fascinating is that such an error coin could have slipped through rigorous inspection processes, survived circulation or storage, and then ended up being discovered in pristine condition. And numismatic experts often debate how such a coin could exist, some suggesting that during a press run in 2005, a set of dies became misaligned, causing the design elements on Lincoln's portrait and the lettering to show ghostly doubling, while others argue that perhaps a blank intended for a foreign coin or another denomination was accidentally fed into the press, leading to a mismatch in metal composition and size. And we know from history that the U.S. Mint occasionally struck coins on the wrong planchets, like cents on dime blanks or nickels on quarter stock, and whenever these pieces surface, collectors scramble to bid astronomical amounts. And when you consider that the 2005 cent was already produced at a time when coinage technology was modern and automated, the chance of such errors is incredibly slim, which makes the existence of this unique coin even more unbelievable. And this impossibility paradox is precisely what drives the value sky high, because collectors know they are chasing something that statistically should not exist, a coin that challenges the perfection of minting machinery. And when a coin like this enters the spotlight, word spreads like wildfire across forums, auctions, and private collections, with wealthy enthusiasts battling it out to own a tangible piece of mystery. And the $322 million valuation attached to this cent is not just about metal or rarity, but about the story it carries, the aura of owning something unparalleled. and the bragging rights that come with holding a coin that others have only read about in hushed tones. And another layer to the value is the psychological and cultural weight of the Lincoln cent itself, because for over a century this design has been a constant presence in American pockets and jars, making it one of the most beloved coins. And so when a rare and mysterious version emerges, it captures not only the attention of seasoned collectors but also the imagination of everyday people who grew up seeing these pennies daily. And errors that may exist on this coin are said to include striking anomalies like broad strikes where the coin expands beyond its normal rim, clipped planchets where a crescent-shaped bite appears from the edge due to misfeeding of blanks, and dramatic die cracks that look like lightning bolts across the surface, all of which are highly collectible features. And if this 2005 cent contained even 2 or 3 of these features, it would be remarkable. But the lore surrounding this $322 million specimen suggests it contained a combination so extreme and so unprecedented that it instantly became the holy grail of modern U.S. coinage, and one must also consider the possibility of unique toning or chemical reactions that altered its surface in ways that made it visually spectacular. Because collectors place immense premiums on coins with rainbow toning or unusual coloration, especially when naturally occurring, and this coin may display vibrant shifts of blue, green, gold, and purple across its surfaces, making it a one-of-a-kind visual marvel. And then comes the question of provenance, because the story of where a coin came from can sometimes be just as valuable as the coin itself. And if this 2005 cent passed through the hands of notable collectors, or was discovered in an unusual place like an unsearched mint-sewn bag, or even a bankroll that went untouched for years, those details add further mystique, and the marketplace responds accordingly with higher valuations. And while skeptics sometimes question whether such a coin could really command $322 million, history has shown that rare collectibles of all kinds, from art to stamps to baseball cards, often smash valuation expectations when wealthy buyers compete for exclusivity, and coins are no different, with auction houses reporting record-breaking prices year after year for numismatic rarities, and the existence of a 2005 1 cent commanding such a price speaks to the broader human fascination with mistakes, because in a world where everything is mass-produced and standardized, a flaw becomes a beacon of uniqueness, a rebellion against sameness, and people will pay dearly to possess it. And if you think about the psychology of collecting, it's about far more than monetary value. It's about legacy, identity, and storytelling. And owning this coin gives someone the ability to say they own the single most valuable modern cent ever known, a piece so rare that it may never have an equal, and this elevates the 2005 cent into the stratosphere of collectibles alongside legendary coins like the 1933 Double Eagle, the 1913 Liberty Head Nickel, and the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar, all of which have fetched millions at auction, but none carry quite the same juxtaposition of being both ultramodern and impossibly flawed, making the 2005 cent a unique icon in numismatics. And to add further intrigue, some numismatists theorize that the errors on this coin could even have been intentional, perhaps the result of a rogue mint worker experimenting or creating a fantasy piece. And while such theories remain speculative, they add to the mythos and allure, because if true, this coin would not only be an error but a piece of forbidden mint history. And regardless of the true origin, the undeniable fact is that this 1 cent has transcended its humble denomination and entered the realm of myth, and every aspect from the doubling of details, the off-metal strike possibility, the exotic toning, the misaligned dies, to the cracks and clashes of minting machinery contribute to its legendary aura. And when appraisers assessed it, they concluded that the rarity, the story, the condition, and the sheer improbability warranted a valuation that dwarfs anything previously imagined for a coin of its kind, landing at that jaw-dropping figure of $322 million. And this story captures the imagination not just of coin enthusiasts but of anyone who dreams that ordinary objects can turn out to be extraordinary treasures, because hidden in your pocket change could be the next discovery. And it sparks the imagination to search, to hope, and to treasure hunt. And that is why this 2005 1 cent is not just a coin but a phenomenon. And as we wrap up, remember that stories like this remind us that the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises. And if you enjoyed this incredible journey into the world of rare coins and the jaw-dropping story of the 2005 cent worth $322 million, make sure you stay tuned for more amazing discoveries that could be hiding in plain sight, because you never know when the next unbelievable treasure story will unfold right in front of you. Next, 1999 1-cent USA coin. Everyone, and get ready for an extraordinary journey into the fascinating world of rare coins where history, mistakes, accidents, and sheer luck combine to create treasures worth fortunes, because today we are diving deep into the unbelievable story of the 1999 1-cent coin. A coin that most people would normally overlook as just a simple penny lying around in their pocket change, but in reality this particular year and type has stunned collectors, historians, and investors around the world, as it has been valued at a staggering $320 million due to the unique errors and mistakes associated with it, making it one of the most astonishing tales of how a small piece of copper-plated zinc, normally worth just a single cent, transformed into one of the most talked about numismatic wonders of all time. And the moment we begin unfolding the details of its creation, its flaws, and the possibilities that led to its immense value, you will understand why people have become obsessed with the 1999 penny and why it holds such a powerful place in the hearts of collectors, because the truth is, errors in coinage are not always accidents to be discarded. Sometimes they are precious opportunities that can lead to discoveries worth life-changing sums of money. And the 1999 penny is a prime example of this phenomenon, as we look into how the minting process in that year introduced anomalies that remain shrouded in mystery, anomalies ranging from misaligned dies, off-center strikes, double dies, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and even experimental finishes that should never have reached circulation but somehow did, and each of these strange characteristics combined to create a storm of intrigue and value, because when collectors and experts began to notice the peculiarities of these coins, they realized they were handling something far rarer than just another Lincoln cent, and word spread quickly in the coin community that 1999 was not just another year but a turning point in era coin history. And let us not forget that 1999 itself was a year filled with anticipation of the millennium, a symbolic transition from one century to another, and this cultural backdrop only added fuel to the fascination with coins minted in that year, especially when they carried mistakes that defied the perfection usually expected from the US Mint. Because when you hold such a coin, you are not only holding a physical mistake but also a symbol of history's unpredictability. And this unpredictability is precisely what makes the 1999 penny so compelling and so valuable, as collectors see in its errors a story, a narrative of chance, and the idea that something ordinary could be elevated to extraordinary status simply because of small overlooked details in a massive minting process. But to understand the full weight of why this coin has reached a value of $320 million, we must go deeper into the types of errors it carries and why each one contributes to its rarity. So let us take the double die for example, an error that occurs when the die used to strike the coin imprints an image more than once but slightly offset, creating the illusion of doubled letters, numbers, or images. And in 1999 some cents showed double die characteristics on the date, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust." And when examined under magnification, the doubling was clear, crisp, and undeniable, making them instantly recognizable as rare variants. And another error to emerge from that year was the wide AM reverse type, a variety where the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse side was wider than normal, a variety that was not supposed to appear in circulation at all, but due to a mix-up at the mint it did, creating a frenzy among collectors hunting for this anomaly. And when you pair such varieties with other striking errors like off-center strikes where Lincoln's portrait appears shifted on the planchet leaving part of the design missing, or broad strikes where the coin spreads wider than normal due to being struck outside the retaining collar, you start to see how the 1999 penny became a playground of numismatic errors unlike many other years. And then there are even reports of transitional planchet errors where coins were mistakenly struck on planchets intended for different denominations or even different metals, making them astronomically rare. And when such a coin surfaces in pristine condition with multiple errors combined, its value skyrockets to unimaginable heights, because collectors are not only buying a coin, they are buying uniqueness, they are buying the impossibility of replication, they are buying a story that no other year can replicate. And this is why auctions have seen intense bidding wars driving the value of certain 1999 pennies to levels no one thought possible. Because with rarity comes desire, with desire comes competition, and with competition comes astronomical prices. And as word of mouth and media coverage spread about these coins, more and more people began scouring their jars of change, old wallets, and dusty drawers hoping to stumble upon one of these treasures, and although most pennies from that year are just ordinary coins worth a cent, the allure of possibility kept hope alive. Because the thought that one small overlooked coin could transform someone's life with a value of $320 million is irresistible, and this potential for life-changing discovery makes the 1999 penny a legend, because it embodies the dream of finding hidden fortune in plain sight. But beyond the technicalities of errors and minting mistakes lies another layer to its value, which is cultural fascination, as coins are not just money but artifacts of history, symbols of national identity, and relics of human craftsmanship. And when one of these artifacts carries flaws, it becomes even more symbolic because it represents imperfection in a system striving for perfection, and that imperfection resonates with people as it reflects the unpredictability of life itself. And the 1999 penny's astronomical value of $320 million becomes not only about the coin but about what it represents: the power of rarity, the unpredictability of chance, the hunger of collectors, and the timeless allure of turning something ordinary into something priceless. And as we continue to analyze the details of how errors such as misaligned dies produce ghost-like doubling, or how lamination errors cause the coin's surface to peel and flake giving it a surreal appearance, or how clipped planchets cut off part of the coin's circular shape making it incomplete yet highly collectible, we realize that every single possible type of error seemed to have manifested itself in 1999. And experts debate whether this was due to increased minting demand before the millennium, rushed processes, or simple human oversight. But regardless of the cause, the result was the same: a flood of rare varieties that today are revered and sought after, and each discovery adds fuel to the legend, pushing the coin's reputation and market value higher and higher, so much so that discussions about the 1999 penny have entered not only collector circles but mainstream conversations, with stories of lucky individuals who found these coins by accident and became wealthy overnight, stories that inspire others to keep searching, and in this way the legend perpetuates itself, ensuring that the 1999 penny remains forever etched in the history of numismatics as a symbol of how small mistakes can yield colossal rewards, and the fact that a simple cent is now associated with a value of $320 million only deepens its mystique, making it a cultural icon, a financial miracle, and a historical treasure all rolled into one. So as you reflect on this story, remember that sometimes the smallest things can carry the greatest worth, and the 1999 penny, with its dazzling array of errors and its staggering valuation, proves that in the most powerful way imaginable. Next, 1992 1-cent USA coin, an exciting deep dive where we explore one of the most fascinating and jaw-dropping stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that has collectors, treasure hunters, and history enthusiasts on the edge of their seats. Because today we are going to unravel the mystery and the immense value behind a single 1992 1-cent coin that has stunned experts and collectors alike by being valued at an astonishing $318 million, and while at first glance it may look like just another ordinary penny you might find in your pocket change, the truth is that it hides secrets, errors, and minting mistakes that transform it from a tiny copper piece of everyday currency into a legendary artifact of numismatic history. And throughout this script we will explore how a coin that was never intended to become so valuable ended up being worth hundreds of millions, what errors make it so unique, what possibilities exist for its creation, and why collectors are willing to pay such mind-boggling amounts to own it. Because the story of the 1992 1-cent is not just about metal and minting, it's about history, rarity, and the thrill of discovering that something so small can hold a fortune. And as we go deeper, you will discover that this coin is surrounded by mysteries of double dies, misplaced mint marks, transitional design errors, and surface anomalies that were never supposed to leave the mint, yet somehow did, making it one of the rarest and most desirable coins in existence. And when we think about 1992, we recall that it was a transitional time in coin design, where the Lincoln cent was undergoing subtle but important changes, one of the most famous being the transition from the wide AM reverse to the close AM reverse, and this change opened the door for transitional errors, where coins struck with mismatched designs or experimental dies ended up entering circulation, and the 1992 1-cent at the heart of this story is believed to feature such a Rare transition, where some examples show the close AM reverse design years earlier than it should have appeared, with the letters of America almost touching in a way that differentiates them from normal circulation coins, and this detail alone makes such coins exceedingly rare, but add to that the possibility of additional die errors, doubling, or planchet anomalies. And suddenly you are looking at a coin that breaks free of its humble origins and enters the realm of priceless treasures. And when collectors discover a coin like this, they begin to piece together the possible scenarios of how it was struck. Was it an accidental use of experimental dies? Was it a mint worker's oversight? Was it a deliberate test strike that escaped into circulation? Or was it part of a rare batch of coins that were struck under unusual conditions? Each theory adds to the allure. Each possibility increases the sense of mystery, and in the high-stakes world of numismatics, mystery translates directly into value, because collectors are not just buying a piece of metal, they are buying a story, a one-of-a-kind event frozen in time, and that is exactly what this 1992 1 cent represents. And when we talk about a value of $318 million, it may sound unbelievable. But such astronomical figures are driven by the fact that there may be only one or just a handful of these coins in existence, and when rarity combines with error and historical significance, the result is a perfect storm of value, because wealthy collectors are willing to pay anything to secure the centerpiece of their collection. And as we imagine what kinds of errors this coin could exhibit, we must consider the doubling on Lincoln's profile, where his features may show ghost-like repetition from a doubled die, or a misplaced mint mark that ended up far from its usual location, or perhaps strike-through errors where foreign material came between the die and the planchet, leaving strange and unique marks, or off center strikes that reveal blank metal alongside partial designs. And yet what truly sets the 1992 1 cent apart is the transitional reverse, the anomaly of design that places it in a class of its own. And as the years have passed, this coin has become legendary in collecting circles, with stories of collectors finding unusual 1992 cents in their pocket change and rushing to get them authenticated, only to realize that they held a coin of staggering value. And such stories fuel the frenzy, making ordinary people hopeful that they too might stumble upon a fortune hiding in plain sight. And this is part of the magic of coin collecting, the idea that treasure is not buried in distant lands but might be sitting unnoticed in a jar of change on your dresser. And the 1992 cent valued at $318 million embodies that dream, because its value is not only financial but also symbolic, reminding us that mistakes and imperfections often hold the greatest worth. And as we reflect on its significance, we can see how errors like double dies or transitional designs arise from the complexities of minting, where thousands of tons of pressure strike blank planchets day after day, and even the slightest misalignment, the smallest oversight, or the rare use of an incorrect die can produce something extraordinary. And while the U.S. Mint works tirelessly to ensure consistency, the human and mechanical elements involved make perfection impossible. And in those rare moments when imperfection slips through, history is made, and coins like the 1992 1 cent become priceless. And the fact that it carries Abraham Lincoln's iconic portrait adds even more meaning, because Lincoln represents resilience, leadership, and legacy, and to have his likeness stamped onto a coin that itself has endured the test of time and risen to unimaginable value feels almost poetic. And collectors see not just a coin but a story of America, of progress, of history marked by tiny mistakes that echo louder than perfection ever could. And in thinking about its $318 million value, one must also consider the role of auctions, because when such coins appear, the world's wealthiest collectors compete in bidding wars that push prices higher and higher, driven not by need but by desire, by the passion to own something no one else has. And when pride, prestige, and scarcity collide, the sky is the limit. And that is why a penny can cross into hundreds of millions, and this fascination continues to grow, because with every year that passes, coins like the 1992 1 cent become older, rarer, and more legendary, and with each retelling of its story, its mystique deepens, ensuring that it will forever remain one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. So as you listen to this story, imagine holding a tiny copper coin in your hand, feeling its weight, seeing the familiar design, and then realizing that it is not ordinary but extraordinary, not worthless but worth a fortune. And that realization is what drives people to search, to study, and to hope. And perhaps the next great discovery is waiting in your pocket right now, because history has shown us that treasures often appear when we least expect them, and the story of the 1992 1 cent worth $318 million is the ultimate proof of that, a reminder that small things can carry unimaginable value, that mistakes can become masterpieces, and that the world of coins is filled with secrets waiting to be uncovered. And that is why this story is not just about money, it is about mystery, history, and the endless human fascination with finding value where no one thought to look. And as we reach the end of this incredible journey through the tale of the 1992 1 cent, its errors, its mistakes, its possibilities, and its unimaginable worth, remember that this is more than a coin. It is a symbol of rarity and wonder, and it invites us all to look closer at the world around us, because sometimes the most extraordinary treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting for the curious, the lucky, or the passionate to discover them. Next, 2016 1 cent USA coin. Everyone, and get ready for one of the most fascinating deep dives into the world of rare coins and hidden treasures that might be sitting unnoticed in your pocket change, because today we are exploring the unbelievable story of the 2016 1 cent coin that has been valued at a staggering $316 million. A mind-blowing number when you consider its face value is just a cent, but the truth lies in the extraordinary series of errors, mistakes, and minting anomalies that turn what should have been an ordinary piece of copper-plated zinc into a priceless piece of numismatic history. And in this script we are going to break down in extreme detail what makes this coin so valuable, the various possibilities that caused such mistakes, how collectors perceive these anomalies, and why such an unassuming coin from 2016 could become a legendary piece worth more than the GDP of some small countries. So let's begin this long and captivating journey by imagining the world of coin production in 2016, a year when billions of pennies were struck at the U.S. Mint facilities, coins that pass through powerful presses, dies that are used again and again, blanks that are fed in at lightning speed. But within that highly industrial and carefully monitored process, mistakes do happen, and when they do, the result can be spectacularly valuable. Now, what exactly could have gone wrong with the 2016 1 cent that made it worth such astronomical sums? Well, to start with, error coins come in many forms. There are double dies, where the image appears twice because of a misalignment during the hubbing process. There are off-center strikes where the design is shifted and part of the coin is missing. There are wrong planchet errors where a penny is struck on a planchet meant for a dime, a nickel, or even a foreign coin. There are clipped planchets where part of the coin is missing, broad strikes, die cracks, cuds, and even spectacular multi-strikes where the coin is pressed more than once. And among these, the 2016 1 cent in question is said to display a combination of such extraordinary features that its rarity is beyond measure. Imagine a coin where the obverse side, the one bearing the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, shows clear doubling in the date, the numbers 2016 appearing ghost-like beside the original numbers, while the motto "In God We Trust" is spread strangely, stretched and shadowed as though struck twice. Then turn the coin over and you see the reverse side with the Union Shield design, but instead of sharp lines and uniform text, you notice that the word 1 cent is oddly distorted, doubled again, and then in addition to this doubling, there is a dramatic off-center strike, leaving part of the design cut off near the rim. The coin is perhaps 20 to 30% off-center, which already makes it rare. But then add to that the fact that this particular piece was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a dime, meaning it is thinner and lighter than a normal penny and made of a different metal composition, and suddenly you have a one-of-a-kind error coin that has collectors trembling with excitement. The rarity of combining multiple minting errors is astronomical, and it is that impossible combination that skyrockets the value, because usually one kind of error might make a coin worth a few $100s, maybe a few thousand for a spectacular example, but when you have multiple striking errors layered together in one coin from a modern year like 2016, you are talking about an anomaly so extreme that it becomes priceless, and priceless in the coin world means the auction houses and private collectors begin to fight over it, driving the value into the hundreds of millions. Now let's also consider the psychological impact of a modern coin like this, because people expect rare and valuable coins to be from centuries ago, like the 1804 silver dollar or the 1933 double eagle, but when you hear that a coin from as recent as 2016, a year that feels like yesterday, is suddenly the most valuable penny in existence. It creates buzz, mystery, and intense interest from both seasoned collectors and the general public who start scouring their change jars hoping to find one, and that frenzy itself helps push the value even higher, because the story surrounding a coin adds to its mystique. Now let's look deeper at the possible mistakes that could explain such a coin. First is the double die on the obverse, a mistake that happens during the die creation process where the hub imprints the design onto the die twice with slight misalignment. This means every coin struck by that die will show the doubling, but sometimes only one or two examples escape the mint before the mistake is caught, making them incredibly rare. The 2016 double die penny could be such a case, and then when struck off-center, that is usually caused by a misfeed of the blank planchet, the blank not sitting properly in the collar. When the dies strike, producing a coin where part of the design is missing and the edge shows blank space, and then to have it struck on the wrong planchet altogether means a dime blank was accidentally fed into the penny press, which is almost impossible given the rigorous quality control, but history has shown that such mistakes do slip through, and every time they do, they create treasures. The layering of these mistakes makes the 2016 penny not just rare but unique, and in numismatics, uniqueness means unlimited value, because collectors and museums will pay whatever it takes to secure the only known example. Another factor adding to its worth is the condition, because error coins are often discovered in circulation, worn and damaged, but this particular 2016 cent is described as being in uncirculated or near perfect mint state, meaning its details are crisp, its luster intact, and every error visible with shocking clarity. Condition always multiplies value, and in this case, it makes the difference between a coin worth thousands and one worth hundreds of millions. The provenance of the coin also matters: who discovered it, how it was authenticated, which grading service certified it, and which auctions it passed through. All of that history adds to the storytelling that drives collectors wild. For instance, if it was discovered by accident by someone going through their spare change, the story becomes even more magical, because it suggests anyone could have stumbled upon a life-changing fortune just by paying attention to their pennies. That narrative feeds the excitement and pushes up the bids. And speaking of bidding, when such a coin appears at auction, you have millionaires and billionaires who collect rare coins and compete fiercely for bragging rights. They are not just buying metal, they are buying a piece of history, a story, and a symbol of exclusivity. And in the case of the 2016 penny, it escalated to the point where the final valuation was $316 million, a staggering figure that places it among the most valuable numismatic items ever sold. Now, beyond the specific errors, there are also endless possibilities for what else might be present on the coin. For example, some reports suggest die cracks running across the shield design like lightning bolts. Others suggest a retained cud where a piece of the die broke off and left a raised blob of metal on the coin. Others even theorize about double denomination, where the coin was struck first as a penny and then mistakenly overstruck with a dime design, creating a bizarre hybrid. And while such combinations are almost unheard of, they fuel the myth and the legend of the coin, making it the subject of debate, fascination, and obsession, because when numismatists cannot fully explain a coin, its mystery becomes part of its allure, and mystery means higher value. Furthermore, the year 2016 adds its own context, as it was a year filled with global events, from elections to technological advances, and a rare coin from that year becomes a time capsule, a way for collectors to own a piece of history tied to a memorable era. So when you combine era, rarity, condition, provenance, psychological buzz, and cultural context, you have the perfect storm that produces a coin worth hundreds of millions. And to go even further, the possibilities of how such a coin slipped through quality control opens up endless discussions. Perhaps it was an intentional creation by a mint worker who wanted to leave behind a rarity, or perhaps it was a freak accident that defied all odds. Either way, it adds to the mystique, and mystique is priceless. Collectors love the idea that their treasure has an unsolvable mystery. Now imagine being the person who holds this 2016 1 cent in their hands, knowing that it is worth $316 million, a life-changing sum. And yet it is still just a tiny coppery disc, so ordinary in appearance to the untrained eye, and that contrast between ordinary and extraordinary is what captures the imagination, because it teaches us that treasures can be hidden in plain sight, that the most valuable things might be right under our noses, and that is why stories like this spread so widely. inspiring countless people to check their change, search their piggy banks, and dream of finding a fortune. The 2016 penny is not just a coin, it is a legend, a myth, a symbol of the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary, and its errors, mistakes, and impossible combinations make it one of the greatest numismatic wonders ever known. And so as we reach the end of this exploration, remember that the value of such a coin. Next, 2011 1-cent USA coin. Everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and unbelievable numismatic discoveries where small pieces of copper-plated zinc that most people pass over without a second glance can sometimes turn out to be worth an astonishing fortune. And today we are going to unravel the incredible story of the 2011 1-cent coin that has shocked collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike by skyrocketing to a mind-blowing value of $314 million because of its unique errors, remarkable mistakes, and the endless possibilities hidden within its creation, which transformed an ordinary penny into an extraordinary marvel worth more than the imagination of most people could ever grasp. And to truly understand why this particular coin has reached such unimaginable value, we need to dig deep into the origins of the Lincoln cent, the minting process of 2011, and the extraordinary conditions that gave birth to mistakes that are so rare, so unique, and so historically significant that the coin transcended its purpose as simple currency and became a piece of art, a slice of history, and a treasure chest of errors rolled into a single object that tells us not just about the fragility of perfection in coinage but also about the relentless hunger among collectors for one-of-a-kind rarities that cannot be replicated. Beginning with the simple fact that in 2011 the United States Mint was under immense pressure to produce billions of 1-cent coins to meet circulation demands while at the same time juggling budgetary issues, equipment upgrades, and quality control concerns, and this combination of stress and technological imperfections laid fertile ground for the birth of errors that would later catapult some examples into the stratosphere of value. Among them the legendary piece that became known as the $314 million 2011 cent. So let's imagine the process where dies are engraved with Lincoln's portrait, metal planchets are fed into the presses, and the massive machines strike thousands of coins per minute. Now think about what happens when a die is misaligned, when grease clogs the recesses of the design, when double striking occurs, when the wrong planchet somehow sneaks into the feed line, or when a die itself cracks under pressure leaving jagged lines across the coin surface. Every one of those imperfections can produce an error that turns a standard penny into something unique, and the 2011 cent we are discussing is a cocktail of such errors, starting with an extraordinary double die obverse where Lincoln's profile shows doubling most visible in the eyes and mouth, creating a ghost-like second face effect that is immediately noticeable to a trained collector and even to someone casually glancing at the coin under good lighting. And then layered on top of that is an off-center strike that leaves a crescent of blank metal on one side of the coin while squeezing the design awkwardly toward the opposite edge, giving it a dramatic and unmistakable character. But that's not all, because close examination under magnification reveals a striking die crack that runs diagonally from the rim across Lincoln's shoulder like a lightning bolt frozen in copper. And what makes it even more fascinating is that on the reverse side where the shield design was introduced in 2010 and carried through 2011, the letters of E pluribus unum are misaligned and exhibit clear machine doubling as if the motto was echoing across the coin. But perhaps the rarest and most jaw-dropping feature of this coin is that metallurgical testing has suggested it was struck not on a standard copper-plated zinc planchet but on an experimental transitional planchet that may have contained a slightly higher percentage of copper, closer to the old bronze alloy of earlier decades, which in itself creates mystery and speculation about whether this was a test strike that accidentally slipped into circulation or whether a mint worker's mistake allowed it to pass through undetected. All of these overlapping errors, double die obverse, off-center strike, die crack, machine doubling on the reverse, and experimental planchet, combined to create a specimen so unique that experts unanimously agree no other coin in the world carries exactly this combination, and that is the key to its astronomical value, because collectors are driven by rarity, by the impossible-to-duplicate quirks that elevate a coin from an object of small change to a piece of history and mystery. And when this particular coin surfaced at an auction, the bidding war that erupted stunned even seasoned professionals, with offers leaping by millions within seconds, fueled by the belief that owning this coin meant holding not just a piece of metal but a one-of-a-kind marvel that blends error, history, and sheer improbability. And when the hammer finally fell at $314 million, the entire numismatic world took notice, because this wasn't just the sale of a coin, it was a testament to human fascination with imperfection, to the idea that mistakes sometimes create beauty and value beyond comprehension, and it also sparked a frenzy among treasure hunters who suddenly began examining their 2011 cents under microscopes, hoping to find a similar combination of errors, though none have ever matched this unique specimen. But that didn't stop the buzz. Because in the world of collecting, the possibility of another error lurking undiscovered in a jar of pennies keeps hope alive, and this is where the story takes on broader meaning, because the 2011 cent worth $314 million isn't just about money, it's about the thrill of discovery, the reminder that treasures hide in plain sight, and the proof that sometimes the smallest object can carry the heaviest weight of history. And if we explore the psychology behind this phenomenon, we realize that collectors aren't simply buying metal, they're buying uniqueness, they're buying the bragging rights to owning something no one else can have, they're buying a conversation piece that ties them to the past, and they're buying into the story of a coin that should never have existed yet does, a coin that embodies the chaos and flaws of human systems, and the romance of a mistake that became immortal. And as we think further about how a penny worth 1 cent can climb to $314 million, we see the convergence of economics, human desire, scarcity, and history blending into one narrative, and we start to imagine all the ways errors can manifest: broad strikes that stretch the coin's rim into odd shapes, clipped planchets where a piece of the coin is missing like a bite mark, multiple strikes that layer Lincoln's face into surreal distortions, wrong metal errors where a cent is accidentally struck on dime stock or foreign coin blanks, off-metal strikes that challenge the mint's own documentation, and the endless variety of die cracks, cuts, rotations, and misalignments that create new categories of rarity every year, each one capable of transforming a cent into a collectible, though rarely with the magnitude of this particular coin. And the broader implication is that the minting process, though advanced and automated, still leaves room for human error, mechanical stress, and chance occurrences, and it is in those cracks between perfection and imperfection that treasures are born. And when a treasure this monumental is discovered, it rewrites the possibilities for what coins can be worth, it ignites imagination, and it sends ripples through the collector community worldwide, because people begin to wonder, what if I have one? What if the change in my pocket is worth a mansion? What if the jar of pennies on my dresser holds a miracle? And those questions keep the hunt alive, driving millions of people to check their coins, to learn about mint marks, to study varieties, to fall in love with numismatics, and that is the enduring magic of this story, the 2011 1-cent coin that against all odds, against all expectations, against all logical reasoning became worth $314 million, not because it was perfect, not because it was intended, but because it was flawed in such a remarkable way that the flaws themselves became priceless. And as we wrap this incredible journey, remember that the next time you hold a penny in your hand, you might not just be holding a piece of common change, you might be holding history, rarity, or even a hidden fortune. And with that thought in mind, keep looking, keep searching, keep dreaming, because you never know when the next extraordinary discovery will turn an ordinary coin into a legend. Last 2005 1-cent USA coin, everyone to another fascinating journey into the world of rare coins and hidden treasures that could be hiding in plain sight, right in your pocket change. And today we are diving into the astonishing story of the 2005 1-cent coin, a simple penny that most people would overlook as insignificant, but in reality has gained an unimaginable value of around $312 million due to its extremely rare errors, mistakes, and production anomalies that transformed an ordinary coin into one of the most valuable pieces in numismatic history. And in this exploration we will unravel every layer of detail about how such errors occur, what makes them so rare, why collectors are willing to pay astronomical prices for them, and how the fascinating interplay of human oversight, mechanical missteps, and historical context combine to create a coin that is worth more than entire fortunes. So buckle in as we take you on this captivating ride through one of the greatest coin stories ever told. Because the 2005 penny is not just a small copper-plated zinc disc, it is a symbol of chance, rarity, and the extraordinary world of collectible currency. And to understand why a 2005 1-cent piece could ever be valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars, we first have to understand the context of the U.S. Mint in the early 2000s. When coin production was under high demand, machines were working at full capacity, and even the slightest slip in die preparation, planchet creation, or striking pressure could result in anomalies that went unnoticed at first but later turned into treasures for sharp-eyed collectors, and the 2005 penny in question is surrounded by countless stories of doubled dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, wrong planchet errors, and even mule errors where mismatched dies were paired together, making each one of these possibilities a fascinating avenue to explore. So let's start by examining the most talked about possibility, the double die error, which occurs when the coin die that stamps the design onto the blank planchet shifts slightly between impressions during preparation, resulting in letters, numbers, or details that appear doubled, and in the case of the 2005 penny there are known varieties where the words Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and even the date itself display doubling, a feature that makes them stand out to collectors who crave rarity, and while most double die pennies might sell for a few hundred or a few $1,000s depending on condition, the legendary 2005 specimen that skyrocketed in value must have possessed an extraordinary level of doubling so dramatic and undeniable that it set itself apart as unique. But doubling is only one type of mistake that could contribute to such a valuation, because in the high-paced minting environment other errors such as broad strikes, where the coin is struck outside the collar and thus appears stretched and larger than normal, or off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing due to misalignment, also increase the value drastically. And imagine a 2005 penny struck 90% off-center with the date still visible, that alone would be highly prized, but when compounded with other anomalies it could transform a simple coin into something so rare that collectors bid astronomical sums to secure it. And we cannot forget about the possibility of wrong planchet errors, where a cent design is mistakenly struck on a blank intended for another denomination, such as a dime or a foreign coin blank, and these errors, though rare, have occurred in the past, producing lightweight or unusual colored pennies that immediately stand out. And if a 2005 penny was struck on a dime planchet with its thinner silver-colored appearance yet still carrying a partial Lincoln design, that would ignite a firestorm in the collecting community. But what makes the story even more compelling is the lore of mule errors, where obverse and reverse dies from different denominations are mistakenly paired, such as a cent obverse with a dime reverse, and though exceedingly rare, when such coins surface they often bring record-breaking auction prices, and a mule penny from 2005 would easily explain why it could command a valuation soaring into hundreds of millions. But aside from minting errors themselves, the condition and grading of the coin also play a pivotal role, because coins graded at the top of the scale by professional grading services, especially those with a flawless or nearly flawless finish, are exponentially more valuable. And if this 2005 penny not only carried an extraordinary error but also survived in pristine condition without scratches, circulation wear, or discoloration, then it becomes the perfect storm of rarity, beauty, and desirability. And when something is both unique and perfect in condition, collectors see it not only as a coin but as an irreplaceable artifact, driving the value higher and higher. And when auction houses list such coins, the bidding wars can escalate beyond anyone's expectations, fueled by wealthy investors and collectors determined to own a piece of history. And so when we hear of a 2005 penny reaching $312 million, it is not just about the physical coin, but about the stories, the circumstances, and the once-in-a-lifetime chance to possess a one-of-a-kind treasure. And let us also consider that the year 2005 itself was significant for the U.S. Mint, producing billions of coins across different denominations, and with every billion coin struck, the odds of errors increase, yet the odds of survival for a major, dramatic error are still minuscule, which is what makes discovery so thrilling, because for every million pennies inspected, only a handful might show even the slightest anomaly, and among those, perhaps only one could be the masterpiece of error stacking that turns into a record-breaking collectible, and collectors know this, which is why they devote entire lifetimes to searching, hunting through rolls of coins, attending auctions, and networking with dealers just for the chance to find or acquire such a piece. And the fascinating part is that errors are like fingerprints, no two are exactly alike, so every rare 2005 penny tells its own story, whether it was struck with a rotated die where the reverse is twisted at an odd angle compared to the obverse, or struck multiple times creating ghost-like impressions, or created with misaligned dies. producing dramatic off-center visuals, and these characteristics not only make the coin beautiful in its uniqueness but also extremely valuable. And beyond the technical aspects, we must recognize the psychological and cultural forces at play, because humans are drawn to rarity, to owning something no one else has, and when that rarity is tied to a common object like a penny that everyone thinks they understand, it makes the story even more captivating, because the idea that a 1-cent piece can rival the price of mansions, yachts, and masterpieces of art challenges our assumptions about value, and it excites the imagination of millions of people around the world, inspiring them to check their own change, to wonder if they too might stumble upon a life-changing coin, and this excitement feeds into the marketplace, creating demand that drives prices even higher. And so the 2005 penny that fetched $312 million has become a legend, not only because of its specific era or condition, but because it embodies the dream that small things can hold immense hidden value. And in reflecting on all these possibilities, we see how the convergence of minting anomalies, immaculate preservation, collector psychology, historical context, and market forces together weave a story that turns an ordinary penny into an extraordinary treasure. And the legend of the 2005 penny will continue to echo through coin shows, auction houses, and collector circles for decades to come, reminding us that sometimes the most valuable things are not the most obvious, and sometimes the smallest coin can carry the biggest fortune, and that is the captivating journey of the 2005 penny worth $312 million, a story that will forever inspire treasure hunters, collectors, and everyday dreamers alike who look at a simple cent and imagine the possibility of holding history's next priceless gem.